So, do you know what day is it? I hope everybody knows it. Today is the time that we're reading chapter 4 of Morning at Green Gable from Anne and the Green Gable. So far we met a lot of characters. Matthew Cuthbert, Mrs. Lint, and Marilla Cuthbert, and Anne. And today, we're going to meet few more characters today. So, let's start reading. Or not, but maybe. Sunlight poured through the window when Anne woke and sat up in the bed. The cherry trees were full of blossoms, so close their branches brushes against the house. Anne was delighted until she remembered she wouldn't be staying at Green Gables because she wasn't a boy. Anne could see the lake of shining waters in the house where the berries live. Oh, how could she live all of this? Marilla stepped into the room. Time to get dressed, she said curtly. Marilla had no idea how to speak the child, so she sounded meaner than intently. Isn't it lovely? Said Anne. It's a big tree, but it doesn't give much fruit. Always small and wormy. I don't mean just the tree, Miss Cuthbert. I mean everything is so lovely. Anne was once again close to tears. But don't you feel as if you just love the whole world in the morning like this? And I hear the brook laughing all the way up here. I know you think it's a silly since I won't be staying, but it doesn't matter. I want to remember everything. You better get dressed and come downstairs, Marilla said. Never mind your dreaming. Anne dressed, and it was a kitchen table 10 minutes. I'm pretty hungry this morning, Miss Cuthbert said. Mornings are lovely, don't you think? I mean, it's a fresh and everything is possible. Oh, please, hold your tongue. You talk too much, Anne Shirley, Marilla said. She sat down. Anne did as Marilla asked and kept quiet. They ate the rest of the meal in silence. Marilla knew that Matthew, even though he's nothing, still wanted to keep Anne. Once Matthew set his mind to something, he rarely gave in. Marilla, however, was not convinced. Can you wash dishes? Marilla asked. Pretty well, but I'm better in children's. I've done so much of that. Fine. Marilla didn't dare ask of the children. She knew Anne would stay a lot on the subject. When we finish the morning chores, we'll ask Mrs. Spencer to clean up the mess. Marilla kept close eyes on Anne while she washed dishes. The girl did a fine job. However, Marilla didn't like the way she made her bed, but she decided to say nothing. Why don't you go outside and play? Marilla said. We'll leave shortly. Anne clapped her hands in joy and raced outside. She stopped suddenly on the porch and turned around. She came back into the kitchen with a sad face. I don't dare to go out, Anne said. There's no use my loving Green Gables if I can't stay here. I would just get to know that lovely and the brook trees, and I have to live. It would be too hard, Miss Cuthbert. I know I said to opposite this morning, but I wanted to remember everything. But I simply can't do it. There's no use loving things if you must be torn from them. Is there? If I must go back to orphanage, then I'd rather just go. Anne looked at a windowsill on the flower shop and said, Miss Cuthbert, what's the name of that flower? It's the tulip, said Marilla without looking up. Oh, I don't mean that short name. I mean the name you gave them. Did you just give the name? Me name it. I think I'll call it Boney. It's a good name for flower, don't you think? My goodness, said Marilla as she dropped her knitting into the laugh. What a silly thing named it a plant. Who would do such a thing? I like to name everything. It makes them seem more like a people. I never heard such a silly thing like that. Marilla went back to her knitting, and she had admitted that Anne was an interesting girl, and she was easy to see why Matthew wanted her to stay. I simply want to, she thought herself. I'll have to be strong. Matthew got horse buggy ready. Marilla and Anne climbed onto the seat and said, Jerry Butt from down the road was here in the morning. I told him he could work here over the summer. So, Marilla, I'll have plenty of help. His sister did not respond. She flicked the reins, and Mary started the gates. They moved down the road and another around and banged at a quick pace. So, this is the end of chapter 4, but I think we can read chapter 5. Let's see. Yes, we're going to read chapter 5 too. Do you know, Anne said, I've made up my mind to enjoy the ride. I'm not going to think about back to the orphanage, but only how lovely this is. Look at those pink butts. They're perfect, don't you think? Pink is a lovely color, but for people with the red hair, have you ever known with the red hair or the little girl changed different color when they grew up? No, I don't think I ever did, said Marilla. I don't think it'll happen in your case either, and sighed. Well, other hope is dashed. That sounds so romantic. Don't you think, Miss Cuthbert? Another hope is dashed. I read that in the book to say whenever I can. We'll be passing through Avonlea. I do love the name of town, Avonlea. And we can have 5 more miles to go. Why don't you tell me about yourself? There isn't much to tell, I'm afraid. Both my parents died of a fever when I was still a baby. Their names were Walter and Bertha Shirley. Aren't those names lovely? I went to live with Mrs. Thomas until I was 8 years old. She and her husband lived nearby, and 4 children, all younger than I helped to take care of them. When Mr. Thomas died, his wife and kids went to live with their mother, but she didn't want me. I went to live with Mrs. Hammond since I was so good with kids. She lived up to the river with her husband and 8 children, including the sets of twins. Can you imagine? When Mr. Hammond died, Mrs. Hammond moved to States and I went to the orphanage. I was there 4 months and Mrs. Spencer picked me up. When Anne had finished her story, and she left out a big sigh. It was trying to tell her life story. Were those women, Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Hammond, good to you? Asked Marilla. Well, said Anne. Her face became red and tried to think of the right words to say. Well, I know that they meant good and kid as possible, but I had a lot to worry about, so many kids and so little money. She turned her face away. Did you ever go to school? Marilla asked. Not a deal. I went to little when I went to live with Mrs. Thomas. But with Mrs. Hammonds, there is not too much to do with all the twins. And of course, I went to orphanage. I can read pretty well, though. I say lots of poems by heart. Don't you love poem poetry? Doesn't it make you feel tightly? Anne turned back and happy, and watching it every way and think past. Marilla realized why Anne was so excited about moving to Anne Green Gables. And she had lived such a hard life. Maybe she should think about Matthew's idea. The girl talked too much, of course, but she was nice and hard worker. I think if I couldn't be a girl, I'd like to be a bird. It would be lovely to be a seagull, don't you think? Then I would never be far from water. So, this is the end of chapter 5. So next time, maybe we'll read chapter 6. Wait a minute. Chapter 6. Yes. So, I'll see you guys next time. So, bye-bye.